The story of Benson and Forsyth architects begins in 1978 in Edinburgh, when their partnership was established after having both studied at the Architectural Association in London. However, the story of the Museum of Scotland began at 190 million years ago, when Scotland was located just north of the equator. The climate back then was similar to the Sahara Desert. Sand dunes were formed over the surface of the earth, and dinosaurs roamed among them. Due to the non-sedimentary nature of the rock at this time, fossils were imprinted into the rock, which meant that years in the future the rock could be extracted from the Murray Estuary with interesting patterning on its surface. Benson and Forsyth wanted their museum to be a resynthesis of Scotland's geological, biological and cultural past, suggesting each to be increasingly fleeting. Being both Scottish themselves, Scotland is a part of their cultural identity. Benson traces his influences back to his youth when he went to school in Glasgow. His view of Charles Rennie Mackintosh's School of Art, reaching out towards the landscape aboard the top deck of a tram, gave him the idea that a building could be built from the genes of a city, something that at the time wasn't widely recognised. Benson was also aware, growing up in Glasgow, of the strong presence of low northern light, the quality of which Rennie Mackintosh sought to integrate within his architecture. Scottish sunlight has the ability to penetrate deeply into a building, providing a temporal incandescence which is considered by many as uniquely Scottish. Benson and Forsyth shared a love of Le Corbusier while at the AA. They loved the freedom of his individual buildings and the appreciation of context in his later work. They worked for 10 years for the London Borough of Camden, designing social housing with Corbusian aspiration, while teaching at the AA, before finally winning the competition for the Museum of Scotland in 1988. The plans for the Museum of Scotland were being drawn up at a time of major political change in Scotland. In 1989, the Scottish Constitutional Convention, led by Scottish political parties, churches and civic groups, devised a scheme that would pave the way for Scottish devolution. The importance of Benson and Forsyth's design being evocative of Scottish national pride, as well as being symbolic of a new era for Scotland, was no doubt in the minds of the architects. Benson and Forsyth's museum exists at the intersection of a line that runs from culturally significant Edinburgh Castle to the geologically significant Arthur's Seat, an extinct volcano. In the same way that Edinburgh Castle, built in eccentric Scottish baronial style, appears like an outcrop of the rugged rock it rests on, the Museum of Scotland, made from locally sourced sandstone, is a literal transmutation of the Scottish landscape. In the same way, on a more micro level, the museum stands at a historic crossroads where no less than 6 streets meet. These historical lines converge at the museum's nodal point, a perfect stone cylinder, which is appropriately the entrance through which visitors enter into the history of Scotland.